Listen, I need to tell you something that's going to challenge everything you think you know about women and attraction. Most men are walking past opportunities every single day, not because women aren't interested, but because they've been conditioned to ignore the signals. You've been told to leave women alone, to wait for her to make it obvious. But here's what nobody's telling you. Women rarely make it obvious. They signal it, they give subtle invitations through their body language, their eyes, the way they position themselves in space. And if you miss those signals, she assumes you're either not interested or worse, that you lack the confidence to act. Now, before we go any further, I want to be absolutely clear about something. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about playing games or viewing women as objects. This is about understanding communication at its deepest level, the language of the body, the psychology of genuine human connection, and the courage to act when the moment is right. Because here's the thing, women want to be approached by men they find attractive. They just won't say it directly. They'll communicate it through subtle cues that most men completely miss. By the end of this conversation, you're going to understand exactly what to look for. You'll recognize the 5 body language signs that reveal when a woman genuinely wants you to approach her. And more importantly, you'll understand why hesitation isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a pattern that keeps you stuck in a version of yourself that's smaller than who you're capable of becoming. So pay close attention, because the cost of missing these signals isn't just a lost conversation. It's a lost version of the man you could be. Let's start with the most powerful signal women give: eye contact. But we're not talking about just any eye contact here. Most men see a woman glance at them once and immediately start overthinking it. Maybe she was just looking around. Maybe it meant nothing. And you know what? You're probably right if it only happened once. A single glance means very little. Women glance at people all the time without any deeper meaning attached to it. But here's where things get interesting, and this is where you need to pay very careful attention. If she looks at you, holds that gaze for a moment longer than necessary, then looks away, and later she looks back again, that's not random, that's intentional. Women don't repeatedly look at men they have zero interest in. If she's doing it, you've caught her attention. The second look, the third look, that's where the real meaning lives. Let me explain why this matters from a psychological perspective. When a woman holds your gaze, even briefly, her nervous system is actually signaling comfort and curiosity. This isn't a conscious decision, it's biological. Prolonged eye contact triggers the release of oxytocin, what scientists call the bonding hormone. Her brain is literally preparing her body for connection. Think about your own behavior for a moment. When you're uncomfortable around someone, where do your eyes go? Anywhere but at them, right? Women operate exactly the same way. If she's looking at you multiple times, she's comfortable with you being in her space, and she's curious about you. The ancient Stoics understood something profound about moments like this. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action, that what stands in the way becomes the way. Most men see her gaze and immediately freeze. They see the obstacle, the fear of rejection, the possibility of being wrong, and they let it stop them. But the man who truly understands female psychology, he sees that same obstacle and uses it as fuel to step forward. He recognizes that the discomfort he feels is actually a signal that something meaningful is happening. Now, here's where men typically sabotage themselves. You see her looking, but then your internal dialogue starts running wild. Maybe she's looking at someone behind me. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Maybe she's just spacing out. And in that moment of doubt, while you're having this entire conversation with yourself, the opportunity quietly disappears. She interprets your lack of response as disinterest or lack of confidence, and she moves on. The modern man has been conditioned to second-guess his instincts. Society has told him that noticing a woman's interest is somehow invasive or arrogant, but that's simply not true. Recognizing attraction is not arrogance, it's awareness. It's being present enough to notice what's actually happening in front of you, rather than what you fear might be happening. Women, on the other hand, are often frustrated when men don't pick up on their signals. From her perspective, she's already made the first move by giving you eye contact. She's already taken a risk by showing interest. If you don't respond, she doesn't think, well, maybe he didn't notice. She thinks he noticed, and he's not interested, or he's too uncertain to act. The Stoic principle here is beautifully simple. Control what you can control. You can't control whether she's genuinely interested or not. You can't control the outcome of approaching her, but you can absolutely control whether you act with courage when the signs are clear. And repeated eye contact is one of the clearest signs there is. So what should you actually do when you catch her looking? The answer is simpler than you think. Hold the gaze for an extra second. Give her a subtle, genuine smile. And then if she returns that smile, approach. That returned smile is your confirmation. You've just received explicit permission to step forward. This isn't about being aggressive or pushy. It's about being decisive and respectful at the same time. It's about honoring both her signals and your own courage. Here's something else you need to understand. Neurologically, when you act on a clear signal like this, your brain rewards you with a surge of dopamine even before you know the outcome. That's why confident men often feel energized when they approach women. They're not chasing external validation, they're acting on genuine potential, and their nervous system recognizes that as growth. But remember this crucial point. Attraction is not permanent, it's fleeting. If you wait too long, analyzing and overthinking, the moment passes. And if another man who is paying attention walks over while you're still thinking about it, she won't hesitate to shift her focus to him. That's not cruelty, that's just human nature. Now let's talk about something equally important but far more subtle: proximity. Women are hyper-aware of where they position themselves in space. We don't just accidentally drift into a man's orbit. If she keeps appearing near you, choosing the seat closest to you even when other options are available, lingering in the same area where you're standing, or repeatedly finding herself in your line of sight, that's deliberate. That's intentional positioning. Think about this from a logical standpoint. If a woman wanted nothing to do with you, what would she do? She would create distance. She'd sit far away, face the opposite direction, or leave the area entirely. Physical space is one of the most honest communicators we have. But if she's consistently choosing proximity to you, she's lowering the barrier between you and her without having to say a single word. From a psychological perspective, proximity is one of the strongest indicators of comfort and attraction. Research shows that people unconsciously move closer to those they feel safe around and drawn to. It's called the proximity effect, and it's been documented in countless studies. If she's repeatedly in your space, her subconscious mind is telling you something her conscious mind, and certainly her words, might not be ready to express yet. The Stoics taught that wisdom is seeing what actually is, not what you hope for or fear might be. Don't romanticize this. Don't overthink it. Just observe it clearly. If she's near you more often than coincidence would explain, she's giving you an opening. But here's the question that troubles most men. Why doesn't she just walk up to me? Why doesn't she make it completely obvious? The answer comes down to one word: risk. Women don't enjoy rejection any more than you do. In fact, for many women, the fear of rejection is even more intense because of social conditioning. Women have been taught from a young age that being too forward is aggressive or desperate. These are labels that women actively avoid because they carry real social consequences. So instead of approaching you directly and risking that direct rejection, she creates opportunities for you to approach her. She makes herself accessible. She positions herself where you can easily start a conversation without it feeling forced or awkward. Think about it from her perspective for just a moment. If she walks directly up to you and you reject her, that's a direct hit to her self-esteem in front of anyone who might be watching. But if she positions herself near you and you don't approach, she can tell herself, he probably didn't notice me, or maybe he's just shy. It's a softer emotional landing. This is where masculine leadership becomes essential. She's not supposed to make the first move, you are. And before anyone misunderstands what I mean by that, I'm not talking about domination or control. I'm talking about taking responsibility for initiating connection. That's what women respect. That's what women genuinely desire. Not a man who dominates, but a man who leads with confidence and respect for both himself and her. Here's the harsh reality that you need to accept. If she's giving you proximity signals and you don't act on them, her interest fades, and it fades fast. Women don't wait around indefinitely. Time is actually working against you in these situations. If you hesitate too long, she assumes you're either not interested or not confident enough to act. And once that assumption sets in, it becomes almost impossible to reverse. The moment has passed. Attraction operates on momentum. When she first notices you and feels that spark of interest, her attraction is at its peak. It's fresh, it's exciting, there's potential energy there. But with every minute that you hesitate, that momentum decreases. The potential energy dissipates. By the time you finally decide to approach, if you ever do, the spark may already be completely gone. She's already moved on mentally and emotionally. The Stoic principle here is crystal clear. The impediment to action advances action. Your fear of rejection is the very thing preventing you from experiencing genuine connection. But when you act despite that fear, you don't just overcome it, you transcend it. You become someone who acts on principles rather than fears. And here's something else you need to keep in mind. Another man is probably watching the exact same signals you're seeing. And if he's more decisive than you are, if he's less paralyzed by overthinking, he'll walk over and start that conversation. She won't wait for you to build up courage. She'll shift her attention to the man who actually acts. Let's move to something that most men completely overlook: body orientation and what it reveals about attraction. A woman's body will tell you more truth than her words ever will. You might hear her chatting casually with a friend, looking busy with her phone, or even appearing like she's not paying any attention to you whatsoever. But if her body is angled toward you, if her torso, her shoulders, her feet are oriented in your direction, that's the real story being told. Women don't face themselves toward men they want to avoid. When we're genuinely not interested, we close ourselves off instinctively. Arms crossed over the chest, torso turned away, feet pointed toward the exit. It's not a conscious decision, it's automatic body language that creates a physical barrier. But when we're open to someone, when we're interested, our body naturally follows that openness. Our posture becomes more receptive. Watch for these specific signals. Her shoulders line up with yours, even if she's standing several feet away. Her knees or feet point in your direction, even if she's in the middle of a conversation with someone else. Her torso leans slightly toward you instead of away. These aren't random movements. They're signals being broadcast by her subconscious mind. The Stoics believed deeply in observing reality without distortion, without the lens of our hopes or fears clouding what's actually there. Don't overthink what she's saying with her words. Watch what her body is doing. If her body is open and oriented toward you, she's already communicated everything you need to know. Here's another subtle but incredibly powerful sign that most men miss entirely: fidgeting and self-touching. When a woman is attracted to you, she experiences nervous energy. That energy has to go somewhere, and most of the time it manifests in her hands. You'll notice her twirling strands of hair around her finger, adjusting her jewelry repeatedly, smoothing down her clothes even when they don't need smoothing, or playing with objects near her like a napkin or her phone. Playing with hair is one of the most common subconscious gestures women make when they're aware of a man they're attracted to. It's not always about vanity or trying to look perfect. It's about nervous energy and heightened self-awareness. She's adjusting herself because you're there. And suddenly, she cares more about how she's being perceived. Imagine this scenario. You're at a coffee shop or a lounge, and she's sitting nearby, chatting with friends. But every time she laughs, her fingers immediately go to her necklace, sliding it back and forth along the chain. Or she keeps tucking her hair behind her ear, even though it's not actually in the way. These aren't random nervous habits. They're quiet signals saying, "I'm aware of you being here, and I don't mind you noticing me." Now, context matters enormously here. Women also play with their hair when they're bored, stressed, or anxious about things that have nothing to do with you, so you have to look at the complete picture. But if she's laughing, if her body language is open, if she's leaning slightly in your direction while doing these things, then yes, it's a clear sign she wants you to approach. Her nervous system is literally preparing for interaction with you. Now we come to the most crucial point, and this is where I need to be completely direct with you. Women may drop every signal I've just described: the eye contact, the smile, the proximity, the open body language, the nervous fidgeting. She may do all of these things clearly and repeatedly, but if you don't make a move, if you don't act on what she's showing you, her interest will fade quickly. And once it fades, it very rarely comes back. Why is this? Because attraction for women is emotional, but it's also deeply tied to timing and momentum. If she's showing you body language that clearly communicates "I'm open to you approaching me," and you hesitate, she doesn't interpret that neutrally. She interprets it as uncertainty or lack of confidence. And nothing ends attraction faster than a man who doesn't step forward when the moment is clearly right. Women are drawn to decisiveness. We respect men who know how to act without second-guessing themselves into complete paralysis. The Stoics understood this principle at a fundamental level. Seneca wrote something profound. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. Read that again slowly. Most men think approaching her is too difficult, too risky, too uncertain, so they don't dare to do it. But Seneca is telling you that the difficulty exists because you're not daring. The act of approaching isn't inherently difficult. What's difficult is overcoming your own internal resistance, your own fear, your own tendency to overthink. Here's the harsh truth that you need to internalize. Men who constantly hesitate get stuck watching opportunities slip away again and again. They develop a pattern of noticing attraction but failing to act on it. And guess what happens while you're standing there overthinking? Another man who was also paying attention to her signals walks right over and starts a conversation. He wasn't smarter than you. He wasn't better looking than you. He wasn't more charming. He was simply more decisive. And she won't hesitate to shift her attention to him because from her perspective, he's the one who had the confidence to act. Then you're left standing there, replaying the moment in your head, wondering what could have been, all because you froze, all because you let fear make the decision instead of courage. This pattern, if you let it continue, doesn't just affect your dating life. It affects how you show up in the world. It reinforces a self-image of someone who notices opportunities but doesn't seize them. And that's a painful way to live. So here's your path forward. When you see these signs, the repeated eye contact, the proximity, the open body language, the nervous energy, you have to act. Not recklessly, not aggressively, but with calm confidence. Walk over. Start a simple conversation. "Hi, I noticed you from across the room and thought you seemed interesting. I'm your name." That's it. It doesn't need to be a perfect opening line. It just needs to be genuine and delivered with confidence. Will you get rejected sometimes? Of course. But here's what you need to understand. The rejection isn't about you being fundamentally inadequate. Sometimes timing is wrong. Sometimes she's dealing with personal things you know nothing about. Sometimes the chemistry just isn't there, despite the initial signals. But the alternative, never approaching, always wondering, always letting fear decide, that's far more painful than any rejection could ever be. Let me bring this together for you. Women rarely say, "Hey, come talk to me," with explicit words. Instead, we communicate through subtle cues, signals, and body language that have been refined over thousands of years of human evolution. If you're not tuned in, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss them completely. And missing them means missing genuine opportunities for connection. Here's the part that some people find controversial, but it needs to be said. Women want you to take the lead. We'll drop hints, we'll open the door, but we're not going to drag you through it. If you can't see the signs, or if you're too paralyzed by fear to act, another man will notice the same signs and he'll approach. And she won't think twice about giving him her attention instead because he demonstrated the confidence and decisiveness that she's actually looking for. Attraction is not patient. It doesn't wait around while you build up courage or work through your fears. It exists in the moment, and it's either seized when the opportunity is there or it fades away. That's not meant to create pressure, it's meant to create clarity. You have more opportunities than you realize. You just need to be present enough to notice them and courageous enough to act on them. So pay attention, Really watch. Notice when her eyes find yours repeatedly. Notice when she chooses to be near you when she doesn't have to be. Notice when her body angles toward you. Notice when she fidgets with her hair or jewelry while looking in your direction. Those are invitations, not accidents. Those are moments of genuine human connection waiting to happen. And when you see them, don't hesitate. Don't let the voice of fear make decisions for you. You're capable of so much more than you're currently showing yourself. Every time you act despite fear, you become stronger. Every time you step forward when it would be easier to retreat, you build the kind of character that not only attracts women, but attracts success and fulfillment in every area of life. This isn't just about dating. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't leave opportunities on the table. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever realized afterward that you completely missed a woman's signals? Or maybe you recognized them and actually acted on them successfully? Share your story in the comments below. I'll be reading them, and I'm genuinely curious to see how many of you can relate to what we've talked about today. And if this conversation helped you see these dynamics more clearly, if it gave you a new framework for understanding attraction, do me a favor, subscribe to Charismind, because the men who ultimately succeed with women, who build genuine connections, who live without regret, they're the ones who notice what others overlook and act without overthinking themselves into paralysis. Be that man. Don't wait for perfect circumstances. Don't doubt what you're clearly seeing. And whatever you do, don't let genuine attraction and connection slip through your fingers because you were too afraid to act. You're stronger than that. You're capable of more than that. Now go prove it to yourself.